Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall drywall repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Good morning, Bill.
Hey, good morning, James. I noticed in your intro there, you're talking about the many adventures of small business.
Many adventures.
And one of the fun adventures I have noted is the people that we meet along the way.
Yes. And sometimes it's a necessity. Sometimes it's just out of pure pleasure.
Yep.
This one was both.
Indeed.
And we've done very well with ourselves in this regard over the years. But meeting Ken Kimball, our guest today from Links Web Design, he has taken us to the next level. So Ken, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I've known Ken now for probably a little over a year. And listen, we're going to talk web design. And it's going to get, I hope it gets a little nerdy because I get a little nerdy when it comes to these things. I like doing these techie things.
I got a feeling Ken can rock nerdy. I think he can do that.
Yeah,
He's got to talk.
I absolutely think so. I can't wait for the education we're going to get. And so we've had many iterations of our websites and web names and stuff, but we just launched our brand new website, holeinthewall.com. Ken and his company did an amazing job of doing it.
Here.
And no thanks to us, honestly. It took probably a little longer than we wanted to just because
He probably thought we weren't alive over there for a while.
Yeah. And frankly, there's still some more tweaks that we're going to make, but that's all on us. Nothing on his team. But Ken, thank you for being here today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company and you and maybe a little of your backstory?
Yeah. So how long do we have?
As we got plenty of time.
Yeah. So I got my start working in IT. This is actually my third business, but the longest running one. We started Links in 2007. And our goal was really to kind of make web design accessible to small businesses. So at the time, the web was up and coming. The iPhone hadn't even been released yet. You can think back that far. And, for a business to really get a good quality website, they'd hire an agency and they would probably shell out a few $1,000s.
Thousands.
And then they would have to pay, once that was done, they'd have to pay for hosting and maintenance and support. And really, for a small business, a auto body shop or a contractor, it was really outside the reach for them. So we came up with a model where we could create, really good agency quality websites without having to charge hundreds of thousands of dollars up front.
Yeah.
So we have a flat monthly fee. And it just really worked. The people would sign on. They were happy to not have to shell out all that money. There was a bit of an investment on our part, because we weren't making any money on the first set of clients. But, after 3 or 4 years, we really found our way, and it's worked out really well.
Well, so the person who designed our last website, I'm still a good friend. We love Andreas, did a great job. But after 8 years, and he was really helping us on the side while he was running his other businesses. And it just started feeling tired.
Yeah, well, 8 years is an eternity in the web design, isn't it?
Yeah, well, to your credit, though, you mentioned you've gone through many revisions of your site, which a lot of businesses won't do. So 3 to 5 years is what we recommend there. You should be looking at it after 3 years. After 5 years, it's time to think, well, is it time? Is it time to really look at this and move on to what's new today?
Well, we weren't, so we're, those who know Bill and I, we're kind of cheap. We don't like to drop thousands of dollars on.
We're thrifty.
Thrifty. We're smart.
We're thrifty, Jim.
We like to bootstrap it a little bit. And frankly, we've been putting off designing another website because I know what it costs. I know it's going to cost between $5,000 and $8,000. It's going to, whatever it is. And for me personally, I know what it's going to take for me to provide the info that the web designer is going to need. When I was introduced to you and your process, you made it so simple in your model. And we won't talk pricing, but the model is so affordable. Because I would design a website, and then every now and then we would get the WordPress reminder to do an update, and someone tried to hack in and change your password. It was such a hassle on the back end. You run all that now. You're running the SEO analytics for us. You're hosting the site for us. Any updates I have, with your lovely wife is your partner, right? And I just email support, and things just happen. We launched the site. Within a week and a half, we had a major change we had to make. We had a link on our financing stuff that we had to get shifted around, and had customers waiting, and all I did is said support@linkswebdesign.com. Please update this. And I actually texted Ken because we're buds. I got his personal cell phone, or at least his Google number. And I said, by the way, check your email. I've got this support need. And he walked in to get it done, and it was already done.
Yeah, his team said, no, we did that already.
Yeah,
that's killer.
Yeah, big dummy. It's already done. I didn't even need to text Ken.
Yeah, and it's really all about process, right? So it's one thing about being in business for 16 years. If you're going to make it and you're going to do things, we have a lot of clients, several hundred, and if you're going to be successful at it, you have to have processes. So we have processes for everything. So when a client request comes in, it gets looked at by someone. We try to respond to it right away. It gets assigned to a developer, and they will do it as soon as possible, as soon as they're done with whatever they're currently working on.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things James has really brought in here at Hole in the Wall as well. I was sharing with you earlier before the podcast. I had a painting and drywall business, and I was content working that. But then when James came in, the business began to grow, and we did 1,800 repairs last year. That requires processes, and I'm a big believer now. I've seen it. It's the only way that we can process that, and I can only imagine you with several hundred clients.
Yeah, well, you have to, right? Because people come and go, and you have to have a process to bring them on, teach them the way things are done.
Yep.
And yeah, I'd say, and that's another good thing about our business. We grew gradually. Like we didn't walk in with hundreds of clients. We started with, I think at the end of our first year, we had 6 clients, right?
Oh, 6! Wow.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of time to get to where we are.
So I'm curious, what happened between the year you had the 6 and to the several hundred you have now? What was the transition? What was the watershed kind of events?
Our goal from the beginning was to grow slowly. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So six clients, and well, from April through December, obviously that's not sustainable. But our goal is to bring on 1 to 2 clients a week, which we've been able to do. So keeping that kind of cadence, our developers can keep up with it, our support people can keep up with it. Yeah, it's just really worked.
Will you get to a point where you want to stop growing?
I don't know, because there's always going to be some attrition. Like
Yeah.
we've been in business for 16 years. We've had people retire. Probably the biggest reason we might lose a client is because of acquisition. Like we had our first client for 15 years, and they were just acquired by another company, a much larger company that already had a website. So we lost our first client because of that, but I'm happy for him. He grew his business, and he sold it for a lot of money. At least I hope he did.
Yeah.
And so there's always going to be some attrition. So we're always looking to grow. I do keep a cap on how many clients we'll bring on at one time. I've told people before, we can't do a project right now.
Yeah, I can see the wisdom in that.
Yeah, and we'll also not bring on a client with maybe a shaky business model, because again, we make an investment in every client. We don't make that investment back until 3, 4, 5 years of them being our client. So if I get people in certain industries that they may or may not make it, we won't take on those clients.
Yeah. Well, because your model is, it's a monthly fee, and then we're able to just kind of keep that rolling. But what makes it so affordable for somebody? Because we're now talking, as we are franchising, we're offering now web design options for our franchisees. And we can offer that service through you, as opposed to them coughing up thousands of dollars up front and then having to host it and all the hassle we were going through for years. We can now offer that service to you at a very, good value.
Yeah, that's a great term. It's a great value.
Yeah. Right, because we're redesigning our break room and we're putting our core values. And one of our core values is value, having a good value for the customers and having a good value for our franchisees.
Yep.
Important. So it's nice to have you on that team of support.
It's a business run after my own heart right there.
Oh.
Yeah, because I am, just like you, I'm very much bootstrap. I want to do things that we understand how they work. Like I don't like black boxes.
Yeah.
I like to have things written out, processes. My wife is also, as you mentioned, is my business partner. She's very process focused, as I'm sure you've learned. And so we try to do everything from the ground up, do it in-house as much as possible, and make it as simple and repeatable as we can.
Right. Well, and I actually have your website on my computer a second ago, and some firms use templates. Some firms, you could tell, they're using this. Like we use Enforce for 10 years.
Right.
8 years. And I can I can look at a website and go, oh, that's a template. And one of the things when we brought you on board, I asked, I want to make sure that, do all your websites look alike? So you have all your websites on your website for us to look at, and we looked through hundreds of websites, and they were all different. They all had different looks and feels, and the graphics were different. And I was excited to know that we weren't going to be a cookie cutter, because your prices are so valuable, are so good, that I'm like, is he just cookie cuttering these things out? Or is he just like taking the same structure and then just dressing up, I met your design. I'm partial to your design guy, James, because, it's a great name. And through the process, there were things happening behind the scenes that you wouldn't even reveal to me. You were like, oh no, I had 3 or 4 rejects. I had, maybe you could help enlighten me and enlighten our audience. What is that process? When you have some Yahoo like me that gives you a bunch of data. Luckily, we had a website that you could glean some info from. Boy, oh boy, I mean, you mentioned it takes an investment on the front end. That's the investment, is the months that took to plow that site together. So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, there are a lot of companies that will offer, web design services for a monthly fee, but they're template websites. So they'll pick out a template and they'll kind of shoehorn your logo and try to make it look like your business. And we've considered doing that. We've played around with it, but we were never happy with the results.
Yeah.
So our process is always around design first, build after. So every site that we do is designed from the ground up to meet the specific needs and branding of that client. And there are certain aspects that we try to repeat. Like, we want to make sure we cover the 4 basics. Who is this business? What do they do? What is their unique value proposition? And what is their call to action? So every site that you go to that we designed, you're going to see that built into every single one of them. But beyond that, every one has to have its own personality. It has to match that business's brand. And we never use templates. So James, our designer, who's now been with us for, I'm going to say about 7 years.
Wow.
He did all of our design work in Photoshop.
Yeah, notice our first rendering was literally the Photoshop, page.
Yeah.
Really long and detailed page.
Yep.
So we always do, we do the desktop view in Photoshop. We'll probably do anywhere from 3 to 12 versions of that design internally until our team is all happy with it. And then we present that design to the client, of course, get their feedback. James has a really good track record. I shouldn't just say James, because it is a team effort. We all give him feedback. We push back, because sometimes I don't know if I want to make that change, or he can be a little lazy sometimes. Don't tell him I said that. But
It's all right. He'll hear it for himself.
Yeah, but we'll push him. We'll push him until he'll make the changes. And we'll usually have 3 or 4 different versions to kind of pick from at the end that we're all fairly happy with. And sometimes we'll show the client a couple of different ones. But we show them the desktop view. We get their feedback on the desktop version. And then our design team, our development team, once the site design is approved, we'll take that and use that as a kind of a blueprint to create the interior pages of the site, the mobile experience. Because, of course, we're developing sites now from everything from smartwatches to ultra-wide monitors. So there's a lot of variation there, but our development team takes care of that. But James does a really good job of putting together that initial design. And again, he has a great track record of getting that first design down and approved. So, and that saves us a lot of time. But the more we can do it right the first time and not have to revisit them, the better we do overall.
Yeah. And so you're offering, obviously, the design and the build of the site. Tell me about the back-end stuff that it makes my eyes twitch when I start thinking about it as a business owner. What are some of the things you're doing on the back end with the analytics and all that stuff?
As far as?
Just like the maintenance of, like, the monthly stuff that you do that I don't see you do.
Yeah.
I know, the hacking proof, I don't know.
Yeah, so the tools for that hackers obviously have become much more sophisticated. The hacks are more sophisticated. If you follow the tech news at all, like WordPress, which is what most agencies use, and I think it's some 2/3 of the web is built on WordPress. It's a huge target, and you can see there are vulnerabilities in certain themes or plugins all the time. So yeah, we have to keep up on top of that. And we have third-party partners that we integrate that really help. It's been pretty rare for us to have a hack site. It happens. We had one site in particular that had a nasty hack that took us a while, like a few weeks to because we'd fix it and they'd find another way in. We'd fix it, they'd find another way in. But ironically, on that site, we had to use, because of the type of site that it was, we had to use a pre-made theme. So it wasn't using our standard stuff because that theme had functionality that specific client needed. And it was that theme
that was vulnerable.
that allowed them to get in, and the theme author hadn't updated it and whatnot. So we had to basically debug somebody else's work and fix that, but we did. And we'll probably lose money on that project for a while because of it, but I mean, that's just what we do. We have to keep everything secure.
Yep.
So security is a big, I know you just did a whole podcast on security and how sophisticated hackers are getting. We've been fortunate, and I hope to continue to be fortunate, but we have to be vigilant as well.
Well, I'm glad I have you to take care of that so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready to start your own business? How would you like a jumpstart? Hole-in-the-Wall Drywall Repair is now offering franchise opportunities for strong entrepreneurs. When you franchise with Hole-in-the-Wall, we help you get up, running, and ready to start generating revenue fast. You get access to our comprehensive training program, continued support, and our proven business model that has allowed us to experience explosive growth. Achieve financial success while providing a valuable service to your community. Take the first steps towards achieving your entrepreneurial dreams. Go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.
So I'm curious how much energy is put in by you and your team to kind of stay on the leading edge and stay up with the changes?
Yeah, so with any industry, there's a lot of changes. Our industry in particular, we all have to bow down to the Google overlords, just like every other agency
Almighty
like
Google,
us. Yeah,
right?
the almighty Google. So we have to keep up with them. So we, of course, follow everything. They have people that talk to the search engine optimization community and the design community. We, of course, follow them very closely. There's updates. There's some really great sites out there. Search Engine Land is the one that I tend to focus on a lot. We use the services of a company called Bright Local, and they provide really good information. They do surveys. They come out with white papers, best practices. So we have to keep up with that. Our development team, their focus is on, we're always looking to improve our process, right? How can we make it easier, repeatable? So we customize, like you talked about the back end. I wasn't sure if you're talking about the security aspect of the hosting, or if you're talking about the customizations we do to WordPress, because we customize the back end for every single client.
Oh.
So if you have a website where maybe you're running a restaurant, you have specials, right, and you want to be able to easily change specials,
right,
we'll create an area right in the admin to add specials. Or maybe you're a municipality and you have special announcements, or a school district and you have cancellations. We make special areas in these sites that people can just really easy without having to figure out all the guts of WordPress.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So that's really important to us. But our developers are keeping up on how to always streamline those processes and turn those ideas or best practices into practice in our business.
All right, so let's talk about words of wisdom that a small business who may or may not be happy with or have a site at all. But what are some things that we need to start thinking about as business owners as we prep for getting a good site?
Yeah, so people ask, we always start every project with a kickoff meeting. And we design our kickoff meetings so that the client doesn't really have to do any prep work. But some clients, they're organized and they want to, and we really like those clients. But the first thing you want to do is make sure you have your branding, right? So your logo, what are your company colors? We build the site around the logo. So if a company doesn't have a logo yet, we will either try to do a little bit for them if they have some simple needs, or we'll suggest that they hire a logo designer before we start the project. The next thing is to know what their services are. And you'd be surprised how many businesses, you ask them, so what are your services in the order of importance?
Right.
They don't know.
Really?
Like, yeah, I'm in this business, but how do I describe my services?
Anything that makes me money. That's what
I find that interesting, though, that someone would struggle with that.
Yeah.
Some people just can't put a pin in what they do, I guess.
I guess so.
I asked them, so what are your services? And they start giving me paragraphs of information, right? They talk for 5 minutes about what their service is. I'm like, well, I can't put that into a navigation item, right? So we either help them try to distill that down into services that we can put on the website. The third thing we always want to look for is, why are people going to use your service? Like, what makes you special? If you're a tire shop and there are 10 tire shops on your street, like why somebody is going to come to you, because we need to differentiate them. Like, people can go to one site to the next site to the next site.
Yeah.
We need to stop that searching process if we want our clients to win.
You know what, Kim, we've actually been having that conversation here that if you're not differentiated, then now you're being sold as a commodity, and commodities are always sold at the lowest price.
Cheapest price, right? Yeah. And we do not want our clients to be the cheapest price.
No.
Yeah. I ask them what differentiates you, and they'll hem and haw. I said, well, let's start with, you're either better, you're cheaper, or you're faster, right? I mean, we can start from there and kind of build from that. And I've gotten pretty good at writing value propositions. Like, during that kickoff meeting, I'll just get them talking about the features of their business, and I'll sit there and I'll take some notes. And by the time they're done talking, I'll throw out a couple of different ones. Like, wow, you're pretty good at this. Yeah, I've been doing it for 16 years. I've done a few hundred of these. And then finally, what do we want people to do on the site? Like, what do we want them to learn? How do we turn this person that we know they need your service because they're here, what do they need to do to make it happen? And how do we make them do that?
Wow, that's really insightful.
So I know that as someone who's had to go through this process, one of the kickers for me is always just, you got to provide you and your team with the content, something, at least give you a nugget that you can build on. And for us, it's photos. Obviously figuring out, we offer popcorn removal, we offer drywall repair, we offer texture matching. So we had to, help you plow through some of those things. And some, luckily, we already done. We have blog posts that we're implementing on our site. Of course, now we have the podcast that we're now plugging into the site. Well, what are some things that the business owners should be thinking about right away? Obviously, the logo was good. Knowing your value proposition, what services you render are critical. Are there any snafus that you find along the way? Like, what are some things that we can grow from? So in 3 years, when we redesign our website, it goes faster.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing, so it's the content. The content of your site is the most important thing. Like, all those things I talked about, those are great, but they're not great until somebody's on your site. And chances are Google's going to be the one that's going to send them to that site. And Google's not going to send them to the site unless the content matches what that person is looking for. So the content is extremely important, and we impress that upon our clients. And how I ask our clients to approach that is to put yourself in the shoes of your client, right? So what are the common questions they're going to have? So you're in the business of fixing holes in drywall, right?
Yep.
There's lots of questions for that. Like, how long does it take? How much does it cost? How often do you do this? What's your service area? Do you paint it afterwards, right? There's all kinds of things that somebody just come into your site, they have a hole, they need the service, but they need to understand the service before they buy it. And even if they don't care, they don't read that text, because people say, well, nobody ever reads that text anyway. Well, Google indexes that text in a matter of seconds. It now uses AI. It's got several different AI models it uses to figure out, is this content going to be useful in the context of the original user search? And that's why your site came up. So thinking through all those common questions and making sure as you write your content, you kind of editorially answer those questions. That's going to help Google say, hey, this is useful information that's going to help this person with their problem. Send them to your site, and then you're the obvious choice to provide that solution.
One of the things that people call here, there's two types of people that call in. One is they've been to our site and they know, I have 2 small holes, 1 medium hole in the side of pepperoni.
Yeah, the terminology they're using tells us they've been to our website.
So we know they've been to our website. And then you have the other clients who call and they're like going, does that include texture? Does that include materials? What about labor? Is that included? Right. So they just don't know. And so they're asking these, to think that that the repair would not include material costs, to me is foreign, but to the homeowner, obviously.
Yeah, and if you've never had that service done or experienced a hole in your wall like that, you might not know.
Yeah, and I can imagine there's a lot of new homeowners in this market, right?
Yeah.
So I can imagine you get a lot of that. They just haven't owned a home before and they don't know.
All right. So when we're looking at content, we're trying to find the right pictures and stuff. Is there any advice on things to focus on? So I'm thinking that for me, say we'll pick one of ours, texture matching. So what does that mean? Texture. Well, that's the stuff that's actually on the walls and ceilings. Well, what kind of texture? Well, that's orange peel, that's knockdown. That's popcorn. So I guess that exercise is really something that you need to have kind of laid out. Obviously, you're patient because you waited for us to work those exercises out on our own. But
Yeah, and I've been on your site, and you do that. You explain what those are. You have photos of those different textures, and I myself, coming from a place where the texture walls was not really a thing,
right.
found it useful.
So you mentioned that. So you started not in Florida, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started this business in Bangor, Maine, in 2007, and have only been down here in Orlando for the past year.
How do you like Florida?
We like it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did spend, a couple of years. We have a place in the Villages, and while our team was working remote, which we've stuck with remote, we were working out of that. But when we wanted to move down here permanently, we wanted a place that was more active, where we could really grow our business in Orlando, which was the perfect spot.
Right. So let's talk BNI for 2 seconds. So those who've listened to us know that we're part of a BNI networking group. Jamie Stein is coming on from BNI, coming on later this month. How important is networking to you in your business?
In the beginning, it was invaluable. I'm not convinced I would still be in business had it not been for BNI. Those first 6 clients I mentioned earlier, 4 of those were BNI members, right? Really? So yeah, I had a couple.
That's a great testimonial.
Yeah, and in my business, your portfolio is everything. So had I gone through that first year and only had 2 clients, it would have been much harder to build that portfolio. I mean, it wasn't until, I remember early on talking with potential clients, and they're like, well, what's your portfolio? How can I trust that you're going to be around in 5 years? So building that portfolio is very important. And BNI allowed me to build trust in some business owners that would trust us to do this work for them, allowed us to build up our portfolio, and then that allowed us to sell more and grow. I'm not sure we would have grown fast enough in our business model had it not been for BNI.
Wow. Well, I know you've been a part of BNI for a long time, right?
As long as I've been in business of 16 years, yeah.
And it just so happened he visited my BNI and is now in our chapter.
That's a great chapter, too.
I looked at every single chapter in the Orlando area. And this is actually almost the furthest one away from so I'm in West Orlando, Northwest Orlando at that. And you're, of course, in Southeast.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I looked at, really what I looked at was the composition of the group. Who in this group is going to be able to give me referrals, and who in this group am I going to be able to provide referrals? And this group, by far, for not having a web designer, there were other groups that they had somebody that does what we do. Yeah. Trish Murphy, who's in the group, has been a tremendous resource, and I'm really happy to have chosen this group, if not only for that reason. Yeah. That I've been able to hand her referrals, she's been able to hand me referrals.
Well, it's funny, when I think I was either VP or just early president when you came on board, and I actually consulted with Trish. I'm like going, is this going to be a conflict? And she's like, no, I think we can pass referrals. Yeah. And then, of course, she's my marketing team, obviously. And so when we went to hunt for a new web designer, I obviously knew of you because of of you being in BNI. And she sat in on that first meeting, and I think she had a couple other meetings with you, and she's like going, we got to give this guy a shot. And then ever since then, I don't think she's referring anybody but you. And it's nice to know that you've been part of that toolkit that we're building as business owners. Yeah. And so I don't know.
Yeah. I actually reached out to Trish before I visited the first time and said, hey, this is what I do. I see that you do a little bit of this as well. But I think we can work together. And she agreed. And that's when I decided to visit.
Turns out you were right, huh?
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Any words of wisdom that we haven't talked about yet you want to share?
Sure. Again, how long do you have?
We're a half hour in. We can keep going.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would just add if you're a business owner and you've neglected your website or you haven't gotten around to it yet, maybe you're too busy. Too busy isn't always forever. And when you're in fire mode, it's too late. So if you're kind of on the fence of if it's the right time, regardless of, you do it yourself or use a template company or a company like us or even an agency that's going to charge us thousands of dollars, it's worth it to do something.
We got to have that branding plate spinning always, right? So we live in a tech world, And if you ask Alexa or you go to Google and you want to know a service, they're going to point to a website, as well as of other things. So if you have something that's yuck, it's going to be kind of a no-brainer. They got to go away.
And heaven help you if you don't have anything, because if you don't have a website, you just about don't exist anymore.
Yeah. I drive around. One thing that I see driving around Orlando is, pavers, and there's a phone number, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
No business name, just a service and a phone number. Like, who calls these numbers?
Yeah,
That's so 1990s, isn't it?
Right. Well, one of the things that I learned from you was like I scroll to the very bottom of every website I go to, and I look at the copyright date on it. If it says, "Hey, copyright 2016," you can tell that site's.
Yeah.
How accurate is that site?
They've been sidelined for a while.
Yeah. Well, we have code that changes it automatically every year. But
Oh, is that right?
Huh?
Oh, that's clever. There's an insight.
Well, because it's important because we talk about, we could light up more marketing things for the Orlando drywall side, but our challenge is as labor, and we want to make sure that we can support the clients we already currently have, but we still have to keep that branding plate spinning. We still have to have, like, do I need to pay for pay-per-click ads? No, but we're going to. Do I need to have, Trish light up all of our social media? I don't, but I want to keep that plate spinning. And the website's really the foundation. So for years, when I came on board the company, we had holdinthewalldrywallrepair.com, right? So it was this gigantic website name. And then the email address was a Gmail. So we changed that immediately, but I couldn't be, James at holdinthewalldrywallrepair.com. Holdinthewall.com was not available. So we shortened it to HIW Drywall, which is what we ran with for years. And so we changed all of our email addresses, and we basically just made HIWDrywall.com forward over to the main site. How important is the actual domain name? Because for me it was, and I've been on a wait list for almost 6 years for holdinthewall.com. And when it came out, I was able to grab it and then negotiate a price for it. But it was worth it in my mind. How important is a good domain name to you?
Less than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it used to be that part of your Google rank was the domain name. Google has moved away from that, and now it considers the full URL, so not just the domain, but everything that comes after it, and more of the page itself when it thinks about ranking. So it used to be really important. For you, I would say it's more important for other reasons than maybe search, right? It's your brand.
Yeah.
Right? It's your
Yeah,
business
true.
name. If somebody else has it, they could impersonate you. I don't see a lot of that now, especially if they would have to pay a lot of money for the domain to do that. But when you have your brochures, you have your other materials, just having that domain is a bit of a status symbol. And you wanted it. You went after it.
I did.
I mean, you felt the need for it.
Yeah.
And that has value.
So when I get excited, I kind of scratch the back of my head a little bit, or I rub my hands together. And when I was able to land that site, because it wasn't cheap, it was like, oh, do we really want to spend this money for that domain name? And at first we were kind of like, I don't know. But the second we did it, it changed all of our branding. It changed all, and frankly, I know a lot of people when they start a business, they actually Google, they search for domains first before they even name their company.
Yeah.
Is that name even available for a company name? Because if it's not, they may change their name of the company. When we were trademarking our name, our trademark attorney at one point was having a hard time getting it trademarked, and he says, "You got to rebrand."
Yeah.
And we're like,
Yeah, no,
we're like
already
7-8 years into this thing,
That's not a good idea. That's not a good option.
Hole in the ceiling? It's like, what are we going to be? So it was part of our brand. And obviously, if you're Motorola, you want Motorola.com. But I would think that is important. I mean, for your site.
We did the same thing, right? We started, linkswebdesign.com was not available when we started. And we started with Links Online Marketing, and that confused people back in 2007. They didn't understand what online marketing was. And then we went to linksadvantage.com, which is still our email addresses. And then finally, linkswebdesign.com. I don't think we paid as much as you probably paid for Hole in the Wall, but we paid a good amount of money for it.
Yeah. Well, it was worth it to me. All right. Any other words of wisdom?
I think we're good.
And we're good.
Yeah.
This was great. I just love smart people, Bill.
I love hanging around smart people.
I know it. Well, listen, thank you for coming in, Ken. Ken, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and if they want to check out your website and stuff, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, linkswebdesign.com.
There it is, linkswebdesign.com. I'll put all that information in the show notes as well. Thank you for coming in, Ken, and thank everybody
Ken,
for
thanks
listening.
for your time. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Great show. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.